when you're a decent psychopath and don't actually kill anyone, you just enjoy talking about it.
Christopher Wren. Does anyone know who Sir Christopher Wren is? What he is famous for? Sir Christopher Wren rebuilt a very famous church in London, a very famous church in London. A church that had been destroyed in the Great Fire of London, so they had to build another one.
St. Paul's?
Yes! He designed St. Paul's Cathedral. He also designed more than 50 churches just in the city of London alone. And that's one of them. And this is Aldgate. It's called Aldgate because it's the old gate of the city. The city of London used to be surrounded. You don't see that wall where we went through? The first wall? Well, there was that wall that went all the way around London. That was London town, the Roman town of London. But there were gates in it. So we get Aldgate here. We get Bishopsgate. We get Ludgate. We get Cripplegate, we get Aldersgate, we get Newgate, and these are all gates of the city. And this is Aldgate, the old gate. Right, I'm going. This square is called Mitre Square. Now, when I first started doing this walk, this wall along here by the side of the school was a passageway, one side of a passageway. The passageway was only about this wide. We went down the passageway into the square, and it was low-lying and it was cobbled. You know what cobbled means? Cobblestone. It was a little cobbled square with a deserted warehouse-type building in the corner. It was lovely and atmospheric. And then someone found 5 million Lego pieces and built the most boring building on the planet. But who am I? So I'm not an architecture expert, but I know what I like. And also what I
Excuse me, we're doing Jack the Ripper.
Good timing. Right. So this was Mitre Square, and this is the site of the second of the two double event murders. But we can't talk about the second one until we discuss the first one. Again, September the 30th, 1888, at 1:45 in the morning on a little, again, cobbled street, about 2 miles east of here, called Berners Street, there is a man walking to work. This man is called Israel Schwartz. And he's walking to work, and just as he comes up to a large doorway which goes into a courtyard behind it, he sees in the doorway a man push a woman very violently down to the ground. Now, he doesn't see a knife, he doesn't see any cutting, but he sees this violent push. And the man doing the pushing sees Israel Schwartz and threatens him and shouts at him, and Israel Schwartz runs away as fast as he can. That was 1:45 in the morning. Just 15 minutes later, on this quiet cobbled street, at 1 o'clock, Louis Diemschutz is coming back from work. Now, Louis Diemschutz has a horse and cup. Don't frighten you again. You're safe so far. Louis Diemschutz is coming back with his horse and cart. Now, 1 o'clock in the morning, that is going to be noisy. A horse with a wooden cart with wooden wheels, 1 o'clock in the morning, a lot of noise. He also wants to go in to the courtyard through this doorway. So he stops. The horse refuses to go in. Louis Diemschutz gets down, has a look, and there, in front of his horse, was the dead body of Elizabeth Stride, the third victim, a Swedish prostitute. He said later, Louis Diemschutz, he said that at first I thought it was my wife. So whether his wife was in the habit of lying down in front of his horse every night when he came back from work, I very much doubt. It wasn't. It was Elizabeth Stride, and she had only just been attacked. Blood was still trickling out from her throat and from her mouth. Now, because these were the only wounds that happened to Elizabeth Stride, that is why some people believe that she was not a victim of Jack the Ripper. If you Google Jack the Ripper suspects, her picture is the clearest one, because there's none of the disemboweling, none of the mutilation, just 2 cuts. But this was almost certainly because the killer was interrupted by Louis Diemschutz coming back from work. And we now know that this killer was basically a psycho, was a lunatic, But he had a very distinct job to do. He had almost a mission to accomplish. He had work to finish. And he couldn't finish it with Elizabeth Stride because he was interrupted. So he has to find someone else. And where does he know that women are going to be hanging around at 1:30 in the morning? The church, exactly. And at 1:30 in the morning, half an hour later, the fourth victim, Catherine Eddowes, was seen at the top of what used to be this passageway, talking to a man. She was seen by 3 witnesses, and the 3 witnesses described the man she was talking to. About 5'7" tall, wearing a peaked cap with light brown hair. Interestingly enough, when Israel Schwartz the next day goes to the police to give a description of what he saw the previous evening, because by then he knew that he might have witnessed one of the 2 murders, who does he describe? A man about 5'6", 5'7" tall, with a peaked cap, light brown hair, but this time with a faint moustache. Coincidence? I somehow doubt. 1:30, Catherine Eddowes is seen at the top of the passageway. Just 15 minutes later, at 1:45, PC Watkins comes into this square from the far corner over there, and he sees opposite him, where that crowd of people are, basically underneath that tree, he sees the murdered, mutilated body of Catherine Eddowes. He said this: "It didn't take me long to realise that the Whitechapel murderer had been down our way. She was cut up like a pig in the market. I've been in the force a long time," he said, "but I never before saw such a sight." And it was a horrific sight. Just like Annie Chapman, she was cut twice across the throat. Just like Annie Chapman, cut down the middle. Her insides lay, again, over her right shoulder. The tip of her nose, gone. The front of her dress, gone. Her left kidney, gone. She had also had her abdomen mutilated. The police are looking for 4. The murder of 4 women. But because this murder happened here in the City of London, we now have the City of London police involved. And you would have thought 2 police forces, well, that's twice as good. But it's not, because they don't work together. They work against each other. Each police force wants to be the one that catches the killer. And you can understand it, can't you? If you work for the Metropolitan Police and you're knocking on doors all around the East End, taking statements, trying to get evidence, trying to put clues together, doing a lot of work, you're not just going to give all that to the City of London Police so they get the glory when they catch the killer. No, keep it to yourself. And because of this confusion, it allows the killer to stay free. And now is the time that we can start talking about Jack the Ripper. Because 2 letters were sent to the Metropolitan Police at Scotland Yard via the Central News Agency during this week. On September the 26th was the first one, called the Dear Boss letter. It was called that because that's how it started, so Dear Boss. And then it went on to laugh at the police, basically, to say how he was never going to stop. "You will never catch me. Please excuse the red ink, but her blood dried up in my pen." That was one phrase. He signs it, Jack the Ripper. P.S. Don't mind using my trade name. The second one arrives on October the 1st, the day after the double event. Sent in the post. And it's a little postcard called the Saucy Jackie postcard, because the character on one side is a cartoon character called Saucy Jackie. And on the other hand, it's a much shorter message, but he talks about a double event. 2 women this time. And again, "You will never catch me. I'm going to send the ears to the police." And sure enough, one of Catherine Eddowes' ears hadn't been cut off, but had been severely hacked. As I say, it arrived on October the 1st. So people put 2 and 2 together. Well, it must have been sent before the double event. So that must be the killer, Jack the Ripper. He knew what he was doing. It was postmarked October the 1st and arrived on the same day. So in those days, you could send something in the morning and it would arrive in the afternoon in the same district. And 30 years later, a journalist who had been working for the Star newspaper admitted that he had written those 2 letters. And he said he did that to keep public interest in the case alive, so that they keep on buying his newspapers. As if they needed any encouragement. I mean, these newspapers would have been flying off the shelves anyway. But by that time, the name was out, and it was such a clever name that people remembered it. And that is why, to this day, he's known as Jack the Ripper, even though we don't know his name is Jack. But we do know that he certainly was a ripper. So 4 murders, 2 police forces, and we also now have a 3rd police force. In England, we have an organisation, you might have it over where you are, called the Neighbourhood Watch, where people kind of keep an eye on each other's houses and the atmosphere around. Well, that's what they set up, because they were getting so angry at the police not doing their job that they set up their own patrols, their own neighbourhood watch system, and they called themselves the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee. You know the word vigilance, like vigilante? And they set this up not only to keep the streets safe, but also to try and catch the killer, which is no doubt why he went quiet for about 5 weeks. He came back for one last hurrah on November the 9th. So we got 4 murdered women, 3 police forces, and after about 2 weeks, on October the 16th, we get something turning up. What was Catherine Eddowes missing? Kidney. What arrives in a little packet at someone's house over breakfast? A kidney. And with that thought fresh in your mind, we shall walk on towards Whitechapel. We are about to leave the City of London. For the first time since we met, we are about to leave the City of London. Say goodbye to the beautiful glass and marble buildings, say goodbye to the money, say goodbye to the finance, say hello to poverty. You can tell the difference in the architecture for a start, can't you? That's the rubbish side of the street. This is the nice side of the street. It's just the other side of the road is Whitechapel. And that's where we're heading now. The other reason why we stop here is if you were to go down to the end of High Street and turn right, you will get to a kebab shop. 130 years ago, it wasn't a kebab shop. It was the entrance to an apartment block, if you like. And about 2 hours after Catherine Eddowes' murder, a policeman was on patrol. And in this doorway to the apartment block, he sees a blood-soaked rag. Not just blood-soaked, but feces-soaked as well. He knows it's an evidence of something. He hasn't heard about the double event murders, but he takes it back to his police station in Bishopsgate, and sure enough it's the missing piece of Catherine Eddowes' dress. But that's not all. Above where he finds this blood-soaked cloth, on the wall is a piece of graffiti, and this piece of graffiti has given conspiracy theorists a field day for over 100 years. It was one sentence written in chalk on the wall, and it said this: "The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." That's very bad English, but I think we get the general sense. It was the Jews what did, basically. About half an hour after the head of the Metropolitan Police, Sir Charles Warren, comes down and has a look at it, he orders it to be rubbed off. There are no photographs of this rather important piece of evidence. He justified it by saying he didn't want to increase anti-Semitic feeling in the area, which is a laudable reason. But he was a Freemason. Now, have you heard of Freemasons? Yep. Powerful men, powerful positions looking after each other. Top policemen, top judges, top doctors, top architects, the pillars of the society. Sir Charles Warren was a Freemason. What's this got to do with anything, I hear you ask? Well, we don't have any photographs of this sentence, but 3 policemen wrote it down in their notebooks, and they all wrote exactly the same thing with exactly the same incorrect spelling of the word Jews. Not J-E-W-S, but J-E-U-E-S. And it was said that this was the way the Freemasons would spell the word Jews. So people thought, that's why Sir Charles Warren, a Freemason, ordered this writing to be rubbed off, because he recognized the writer as being a Freemason. Add to this the fact that Queen Victoria's grandson was having an affair with a prostitute in Whitechapel. Not only did they have an affair, they had a baby. And one of the nannies of this baby was the fifth victim, Mary Jane, or Marie Jeanette Kelly, and she had to be silenced. So, who better to silence her than the Queen's royal surgeon? He would know his way around a female body. So, who's the Queen's royal surgeon? Sir William Gull. What is he in his spare time? A Freemason. Add to that the fact that Freemasons, on occasion, when they want to make a special example of someone, they will not only kill them, but they will rip open their bodies, take their insides out, and put them over their right shoulder. Just like Annie Chapman. Just like Catherine Eddowes. Add to that the fact that Catherine Eddowes was killed in Mitre Square. Now the mitre, the mathematical architectural tool, is one of the symbols of Freemason. So you put all these little clues together and you get a wonderful conspiracy theory. And this all comes together, funnily enough, in a film taken from a graphic novel of the same name. And this film and book were called From Hell. And it stars Johnny Depp as an English detective, a real English detective, on the Jack the Ripper case. Now, once you've got over Johnny Depp's accent,
True.
it is quite an enjoyable film, and it will give you the atmosphere of 1888. Don't believe the story, but do watch the film, because it's a good film. It's got some good character acting in it, and Johnny Depp isn't bad. But don't believe the story. It is this story of the Queen Victoria's surgeon and the Freemasons. But the title From Hell is taken from history, from truth, from reality. October the 16th, the head of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee, Mr. George Lusk, is sitting down for breakfast. No doubt he's got orange juice, croissants, sausages, bacon, fried bread, a cup of tea. The only thing he hasn't got is kidneys. And then the postman arrives, and his breakfast is complete. A little packet with a letter. He opens the letter. It starts off, From Hell. It goes on, Mr. Lusk, sir, here is part of the kidney that I took from one woman, preserved it for you. The other part I fried and ate. It was very nice. I might send you the bloody knife that took it out if you only wait a while longer. Signed, not Jack the Ripper, signed, Catch Me When You Can, Mr. Lusk. Surely, if it had been a hoax, he would have signed it Jack the Ripper, because that's what everyone was calling the killer. But no, he signed it Catch Me When You Can. George Lusk opens the packet, and sure enough, there is the icky, sticky, gooey remains of part of a human kidney. They couldn't tell it came from a man or from a woman, but they could tell that it came from the left side, the same side that Catherine Eddowes was missing her kidney. And it also showed signs of the same disease from which Catherine Eddowes had suffered, White's disease, an affliction which affected alcoholics. Interestingly enough, though, Catherine Eddowes' right kidney did not show signs of White's disease. In London for a while, pop over to the Royal London Hospital because it's still there. You ask the right people, you can get a look for yourself. See if it's Catherine Eddowes' real kidney. No one really knows. It's yet another strange mystery to this whole story. So, one more to go. In the depths of Whitechapel, in Dorset Street, the same place where Annie Chapman and Mary Ann Nichols had both stayed in their doss houses. And that is where Mary Jane Kelly, because she was only 25, could afford to rent her own room. That's why she was murdered inside. And because she was inside, the killer had time and he had light. Two distinct advantages, and believe me, he made full use of these two advantages. On none of them was there any evidence of sex having taken place. This was even worse than rape or it wasn't a sexually motivated attack. Please. This was even worse than that. This was a man who hated women. I don't think he hated prostitutes. He killed prostitutes because they were the easiest target. They would go anywhere. They were so desperate for money. There was a case only about a dozen years ago in an English town called Ipswich. Interestingly enough, 5 prostitutes died. And they knew, before the 5th one had died, they knew that there was someone in Ipswich targeting prostitutes, and yet they still went out on the streets looking for work. Now that was 2010 or something, when there is enough social support for you surely to survive without having to go out into the streets where a killer is. But they did, because there's something that we carry inside us. It won't happen to me. I'll be safe. I'll recognise this man. I'll know instinctively. But they didn't. 5 of them didn't know. So if they went out in 2010 in Ipswich, just imagine how desperate they were in 1888 in London. Just something to think about when we head on up. It was basically this block here where this building is now. As I said, it wasn't just a street, it was a little area, a block of little alleyways and passageways and courtyards, and in it were some private rented rooms, and Mary Jane Kelly lived in one of those, and she lived in the unluckiest number of all.
13.
Exactly, number 13 Miller's Court. That's where she was found on November the 9th, 1888. But we're going to go inside the market here, Spitalfields Market, try and find a little corner somewhere for our final resting place. Sorry, that came out wrong. Right, November the 9th, 1888, the final murder. Sometime between 4 o'clock in the morning and 8 o'clock in the morning, Mary Jane Kelly was murdered. And we know this because at 4 o'clock in the morning, there were shouts heard coming from number 13 Miller's Court. Shouts of murder, help! But nobody went to help, because Dorset Street was one of the most dangerous streets in the East End. You didn't get involved in someone else's problem, even if you could hear shouts of murder and help. Oh no, you leave them to it. So that was 4 o'clock in the morning. At 8 o'clock, the little boy collecting rent on behalf of the landlord knocks on the door of number 13. No answer. Knocks again. No answer. He goes back to the landlord, who tells him to get back to number 13. He wants his money because Mary Jane Kelly is 6 weeks late with her rent. She owes 29 shillings. Break the door down with an axe if you have to, he tells the little boy. At 10:30, the City of London police, for some reason, of that tower 300 years ago was a French Huguenot Protestant chapel, and then 100 years later it became a Jewish synagogue because the Jewish people moved into the area, so they took over the chapel and turned it into a synagogue, and now it's a mosque. So it's been a chapel, then a synagogue, now a mosque, because the people living in the area keep changing. But this street, the houses on the left-hand side, there are only 2 windows across. Tall but thin. Up until the Second World War, this was a slum street. No one wants to live in this street at all. Now, you would need at least £3 million to buy one house in that street. Because we are so close to the City of London, and house prices have rocketed. So that just gives you an indication of how times have changed. But all the buildings around here, from the church, which is 300 years old, down Fournier Street, all these buildings, you see the 10 Bells Club, that's Annie Chapman's pub, all the girls that are drunk in the pub. All the buildings down there and round to here, they would have known about 130 years ago. And if you see those signs again, all say
Oh my god.
I'm already freaking out. Wait, can you see me at all?
Yeah, I can. There's a Jack the Ripper area. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. We can pretend to get disemboweled.
We'll do a review. Okay, we'll do a review.
God, I'm just so excited. I'm sorry. That's a dungeon spell.
That's it. They have Wi-Fi here?
Yeah, to the visitors.
When they have Wi-Fi in Stonehenge.
I just want to go to the merch store, honestly.
Hello.